What are some clear signs that someone is failing at life? Hey there, welcome back to our channel. Today we're tackling a real talk topic. What are some signs someone might be struggling in life? Stick around as we break down those signs that might pop up when someone's having a rough time. Before we start with the first story, please hit a thumbs up, subscribe, and ring the notification bell to stay updated with us. Number 15. How far they have to look back to brag. If a 40-year-old talks about his high school life, that's a pretty good indicator. Worked with a middle-aged woman who mentioned every few weeks in conversation that she'd have been prom queen of like 1985. She would just interject, "Can you believe I was prom queen, lol?" in every situation. She was a cliquey mean girl too. She was stuck in high school in her mind. But it was weird in a large middle-aged woman. Number 14. About 10 years after I left high school, I had moved away from my hometown, but for reasons I had to move back. I needed a haircut, so I went to the place nearest to work. The girl cutting my hair starts with the usual chit-chat, then asks where I went to school. Turns out it was my school. OMG, what year? She was in the year below me. Cue her talking non-stop about school. School was the best thing ever. She was famous at school. Everyone knew who she was. I didn't recognize her or her name. She then recounted story after story about all the things her and her famous friends got up to, with increasing levels of incredulity that I'd not heard about them or their antics. Now you might think I'm being uncharitable, and she was just trying to find a common ground. However, several months later, when I needed another cut, I returned and listened to her talk about her amazing high school life to another customer as I waited. When it was my turn in the chair, it was like a replay of the previous visit. Third visit was the same. After that, I stopped going because I couldn't bear a fourth. I don't want to imply she was a failure because there's nothing wrong with hairdressing, but high school was clearly her high point when I met her. Number 13. Always complaining and never taking responsibility. They characterize everything as happening to them and don't take any initiative to change their situation. I dated an unemployed 30-year-old woman who still lived with her parents. She had a university degree and her family was financially well off. She had a lot of things going for her, so I couldn't understand what her problem was until a few months, and it became increasingly obvious that she couldn't handle being wrong about anything, ever, even the tiniest things. Otherwise, she would have a mental breakdown. Meanwhile, according to her, everyone else was the problem: her parents, her exes, and eventually me. So you're absolutely right. Number 12. Haters are a real thing, but no one complaining about the haters on Facebook has a life that anyone is jealous about. Number 11. I hate these kinds of questions. No one has a handbook at life, and no one was asked to be born. Everyone just tries to survive the best ways they can given what they have, where they are, and what life throws at them. I will never look at a person and think, wow, that person is failing at life. Instead, I'll wonder how they got to that place. And I hope others would as well. I can't imagine someone seeing a mistake I do, which we all do because we're human, and thinking/saying, that person is just failing at life. What a pretentious, privileged attitude. Number 10. Know a 90-year-old creepy stalker nosy lady, and she's about 15 emotionally. Nosy busybody gossiper, life, thinks every human should think and live like her and all her pompous self-righteous values. She then plays the victim as to why half her family doesn't talk to her and people around this area loathe her. The lack of self-awareness is hilarious. Number 9. Ouch. This hits pretty close to home. For me, lashing out at other people/things for anything gone wrong in my life is like a split-second knee-jerk response. To be sure, I think everyone has some problems that are indeed caused by others. But it got to the point where I would be internally seething at coworkers or bosses for every flaw on a document I had to fix, or concocting elaborate revenge fantasies against people I felt were keeping me down. Then there was God blaming. Grew up in a Christian background and was convinced God had placed a curse on me because it always seemed I was doomed to worse luck or outcomes than other people. I would write detailed journal posts about how God or life was specifically out to get me, doing analysis sort of like a prosecutor collecting evidence to prove I was being unjustly wronged. Much of my mindset was, why do I always have to put in twice the effort to get half the payoff everyone else gets? I can feel that urge even as I'm typing this. There was no sudden flash of light epiphany moment where this dawned on me. It was more like a gradual realization over the course of years. The tricky part, as someone mentioned, is that there usually is a certain nugget of truth in blame, which makes such an attitude difficult to shed. For instance, if you had a crazy conspiracy theorist mother, then she did affect you a lot, but you can't blame her for 80% of your problems if she's only the cause of 40%. Or if someone cut in front of you in traffic before you could cross a yellow light, then they did indirectly cause you to arrive late at work, but you could have left home 10 minutes sooner. In my mid-30s now, and trying my best. Number 8. 1. They are unable to change behavior that is clearly harming them and objectively problematic. Drunk driving, abusive behavior, etc. 2. They are unable to take responsibility. 3. They blame others, particularly marginalized groups, for their failings because self-reflection would be too painful. 4. They mistreat those who treat them the best and show no gratitude. 5. They betray those who have shown them kindness. 6. They value materialism over substance. 7. They treat people as things. 8. They judge others for the things they do in secret. 9. They weaponize the hardships of others for the purpose of manipulating them. 10. They take advantage of those who can't fight back. Number 7. People are great at covering things up. That guy living in the one-mill house may have just got divorced. He may have a failing business and on the brink of bankruptcy. But he wouldn't show it. The guy living in the typical family home in the city may have a healthy relationship and bank account. But people think he's failing because he doesn't care to wear Walmart clothes and drive a 2005 Honda. Unless you know the person deeply, it's best to not judge the person. Number 6. The fastest way to fail at life is to never take a second to reflect. All around us are folks living frantic, busy lives. The world throws more and more onto our plates. Some of us scramble to get it all done, because it has been deeply ingrained within us that falling behind in productivity is falling behind as a person. Some are better at handling this stress than others, but we all need healthy coping mechanisms to stay afloat. If you fail to adopt healthy habits to handle the challenges of life, you will be worn down and destroyed. You may turn to drugs, alcohol, food, video games, or other vices to cope. And sometimes it all comes to a head in a catastrophic display, which will force the issue. You have to take a step back and analyze your behavior. Why do you act the way you do? Why do you think the way you do? And most importantly, why do you feel the way you do? The answers to these questions may take years, if not decades, to reach. Therapy helps, but it is well worth it to try. You might find that you are holding on to coping mechanisms you learned in your childhood which no longer serve you as an adult. It is genuinely sad to see an older person who has never prioritized their own happiness and health before the well-being of others, or worse, the well-being of their employer. They'll grind themselves to dust because they simply do not know any other way. Number 5. People who constantly talk about how great they were /achievements/job they had 10+ years ago. Especially when that achievement was not that great, like being a good football player in high school or a middle management role, that they'll rarely discuss how they lost or wasn't my fault. If you were an astronaut, an Olympic world champion, or risked your life to save a bus full of kids, then sure, that's a peak difficult to top, but mostly those stuck in history really don't impress as much as they think. Number 4. A guy I went to high school with became a rabid right-winger. We used to be friends and then at least friendly, but he just kept coming after me with vulgarities, on social media, in person, all the time. An example, he said something about me on Obama's in a thread where my grandmother was commenting. So I unfriended and blocked and hadn't talked to him about 15 years. I ran into him recently and well, he got divorced and went back to school to get a different degree, because he kept getting fired from jobs with his first degree, because he's an insufferable asshole. Now his parents are paying for an apartment for him in the town near where he lives. He didn't get into right-wing stuff openly, but he did take a few opportunities to talk about how he only knows one person who died from COVID, supposedly, and a few other right-wing talking points. His parents really f***ed him up when he was a kid, and it turned out he couldn't un-f*** himself. Number 3. Asking for garbage bags because you can't afford them, only for me to find out later that they were at the dispensary earlier that day buying weed. I had a girlfriend who lost her job shortly after we started dating and asked me for gas money to apply for jobs. She spent it all on weed instead. She looked at me one day and said, "You think I'm a loser?" And I am a terrible liar, so I ended the relationship. In retrospect, she was super depressed. But I was barely holding on financially, and she was pretty rude to me, so I wasn't equipped to save her. Number 2. Continuously having kids that they do not want with a partner they despise. I'm not sure I'd say they despise them when they're having kids with them, although I'm sure there's some exceptions. It's more of men having kids with someone that you know you will leave/not take responsibility for, or women having kids with someone that has shown red flags that they won't be there for you for a variety of reasons. Unless you meant couples that are together but don't fully want to be, at least one of them doesn't, yet keeps having kids. In that case, then yeah, and I just feel bad for the kids because of that. Number 1. It's all relative. You can view someone as successful, but they are a failure in their own eyes, and one person can look to be a failure, but are proud of what they've done and are happy. When I managed my university's dining system, we had a cashier who had been there 27 years doing the same job. When I first heard about her, I judged her a bit thinking, how could you just be a cashier for almost 30 years? Then I met her. She was one of the happiest people I've ever met in my life. She loved her job and the students. She loved her family and friends. She loved being active in her church. Her life was so full, and she was surrounded by love. Many people would look at her as a failure, but she's truly one of the most successful people I ever met in my life, and I envy her. Thanks for tuning in, folks. If you found this video interesting, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more thought-provoking content. What signs have you noticed when someone's going through a tough time? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Remember, life's a journey, and we're all in it together. Take care, and we'll catch you in the next video. Bye for now.